NBC's Mike Memoli is reporting from Largo, Maryland. Also with us is Megan Hayes, former special assistant to President Biden and former director of message planning, and Senator Claire McCaskill, former U.S. senator, co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast and an MSNBC political analyst. So, Mike, this is the first time we've seen the president and the vice president together at a political event since he dropped out of the race. What did you notice here?
Well, Jose, I was really struck over the course of the last half hour or so. As much of what I saw and the emotion that you could feel in the room as what we heard from both the president and the vice president here. Seeing the vice president come out with the president, speaking first for the first time behind that seal of the president of the United States. We've seen her on the campaign trail over the last 2 weeks with the seal of the vice president before her, but a preview for voters of the vice president there with the office she hopes to hold here after January 20th. You saw her praise effusively President Biden, the kind of leader, the kind of person that she has served with in the White House for the last 3 years. And you could see the emotion very clearly on President Biden's face as the crowd was organically erupting into these chants of "Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe." And while President Biden was on stage with the vice president during her remarks, when it was his time to take the lectern, she literally ceded the stage. She gave him that moment as the crowd continued to speak and shout, "Thank you, Joe," to the president. So this is a significant policy achievement that we're hearing the president and the vice president talk about. One of the hardest fought. They had to expend a significant amount of political capital to get there. But it's one that also now speaks to what they hope will be a winning issue in the fall. But as the president now hopes to see his vice president succeed him in office, there's the question, of course, about whether he can be helpful or whether it'll be detrimental for him to be out on the campaign trail. And we saw very clearly the vice president, as she introduced President Biden, give a signal of how much she wants him to be part of the ticket. Let's watch that moment here as she handed the stage to the president.
It is my eternal and great, great, great honor, I have to tell you, to serve with this most extraordinary human being and American and leader, our President, Joe Biden.
And now you can see as the two embrace in that moment, the vice president mouthing the words, "I love you," to the president. This is a close relationship that has been built, especially over very difficult political circumstances in the last few months. And this whole event, Jose, I think a preview of sorts of what we're going to see on the first day of the Democratic Convention in Chicago next week, where it's going to be important for Democrats now, after what, yes, has been a very difficult period, but one in which joy has been the sort of buzzword of the campaign now going forward, unites to celebrate President Biden's legacy before looking to the future of a potential Harris-Walz administration after November.
Megan, I mean, you worked with the president. You know them very well. What were you thinking and what were you feeling in this time?
Look, it's incredible. It's incredible that the vice president and the president can be on stage together touting their accomplishments. You know, this is an incredible opportunity for them to show the middle class what they have done for them, building the middle class out, lowering costs for American people. That is what they were doing. That is part of their legacy. It's incredibly exciting to see the vice president there with the president and being able to celebrate these accomplishments and move towards November.
So just like at a personal level, when you've known these people, you've worked with them, what were you thinking?
You know, I think it gives me a lot of pride and a lot of honor that I got to serve with or work for both of those people. It's incredibly exciting to see these accomplishments. I was there in the White House when this passed. So it was incredible to see. It's also just incredible to see the incredible loyalty that they have to each other and the relationship that they've built over the last 3.5 years. So it just reminds me of the incredible honor it was to serve under both of them.
Yeah, Claire, I was just wondering your thoughts on this. I mean, this was an important statement by the Biden administration, efforts that were just, years in the making. And I mean, the president was saying how when he was a former senator, he fought for this. When he first got to Washington, he fought for this in the 70s. Just how significant is this event, I think, for the president, but also for the vice president?
Listen, there's a couple of different things. First, it was fun to see Joe Biden unplugged. When he referred to Donald Trump as Donald Dump, and when he made jokes at his own expense about his age, you could see that he is having fun. And I know this last month and a half has been terribly difficult for him and his family, but I was encouraged by the way he spoke today. The other thing is, to quote Joe Biden, what they announced today is a BFD. I witnessed the red wall protecting pharma in Congress. I witnessed the amount of money that pharma put into campaigns to stop any accountability that they should have about gouging Americans on their drug prices. The fact that Joe Biden got this done, and the fact that Kamala Harris had to cast a tie-breaking vote because the Republicans were unified in trying to protect pharma at the expense of Americans. This is a powerful, powerful issue to use in this campaign. And I'm really happy that the two of them united today to show that it is, in fact, the Democrats that brought this relief to millions of Americans. Billions of dollars will be saved by Americans because of this work. And I think it's a very powerful issue in this campaign.
Certainly is an issue that they can run on and that they can repeat over and over again. But Megyn, these prescription drug prices, really, the changes that were highlighted don't most of them go into effect until 2026. So how do you think, message-wise and otherwise, the Harris campaign can utilize this so important message, to use Claire's words?
Okay, I just think it's something that they're trying to do to make costs better for the American people, to bring more cost savings. And I understand it doesn't go into effect immediately, but it will bring savings and people have something to look forward to. And I think that's part of what, you know, the vice president's message is moving forward is there's, you know, a new vision for the future. There's a hope here. There's help on the way type of policies that are changing. So I do think, you know, where it's not immediate, that is true, but it is coming, which is better than not happening at all, which is what the Republicans would be doing. So I just think that we need to take the positive here and look at the major accomplishment that they did do. And this is just a start. This is one of their policies of cutting, you know, the cost cutting measures that they're doing, especially for the middle class.
Yeah, I mean, Senator, there is no doubt that the presidency has so much power in so many ways. This was a moment where the presidency is transferring some of that power to the vice president politically. Is this something that you think can, going forward, be effective for the president and the vice president?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's really important that you see their relationship, that you see that, you know, Donald Trump is trying to peddle this idea that Kamala Harris had some kind of coup to push Joe Biden out. Well, clearly, you see their relationship today. You see how close they are. You see the mutual respect and friendship that they enjoy. And I think the more the American people see that, when they see that Joe Biden did the right thing for this country by passing the torch to Kamala Harris, and that the two of them are united in trying to protect the middle class, I think it's very effective. And by the way, anybody who complains that this was an official event and that it felt maybe more like a campaign event, let's not forget that Donald Trump did political events at the White House. So, I mean, I don't want to hear any criticism that this event felt too much like a campaign. They were announcing a policy change that they effected as president and vice president of the United States, and I think it was perfectly appropriate.